All right, you guys, we've got a problem, okay? Maybe you do. You want the Nissan Z, or maybe you don't, but if you did, you probably can't get one. This is what it says right now on Nissan's website. They don't have one available for you right now. You cannot put in a new order. So I thought I would offer you guys some real consumer advice, you know, help you guys out. So in front of me, I have an R33 GTR. It's been heavily modified. I figured I'd help you guys out a little bit. What in the used market, in the Nissan catalog of enthusiast cars, you can actually get right now today. That's what matters. So let's go for a drive. This is the $50,000 question. This is my $50,000 question. I don't know about you guys. I'm kind of just bringing you into my world for this one, hoping I can shine light and bring you guys, some of you guys maybe that are considering the new Z, to your senses. Not that the Z is not a great car, because it truly is, and you should be excited about it. It's just, dealer markups suck. I hate them, you hate them, we all hate them, but they're a reality of a car that is very high in demand right now. So yeah, here's a Shields GTR R33. I've been around this car a bunch before. I've seen it a few times in person. He just recently got it back from Calgary. He's got a single turbo conversion, so it's no longer twin turbo. It's no longer kind of directly comparable to the Z in that regard, being both 6-cylinder turbos, twin turbos. So single turbo, built by Chris Scremin at Spectrum Motorsports. And it's, of course, a 2.6 RB26. All right, real quick, I want to give a huge thanks to TouchUpDirect for sponsoring this video and helping me get my Skyline back on the road for driving season. The rest of the car needs plenty of upgrades, but if you're like me and you like going on long drives, especially at higher speeds, rock chips are inevitable, okay? And TouchUpDirect was very quick to point out that I had plenty, so let's get to it. What we've got here is one of their brush kits. It comes with instructions, a test section, gloves, and 3 coats: a primer, color, and clear. After testing if the QM1 Nissan paint is a match, I'm gonna just go for broke with these nasty chips I have all over the front bumper. Some of them are even down to bare metal, so primer is definitely essential here. We'll start with that. Next, I did a few coats of white, and then of course clear coat to finish it all off. I think it turned out pretty good. And with a quick polish, of course, after waiting 48 hours, you can get it even closer to that OEM look. Of course, my paint is 25 years old at this point, so like I said, giant uphill battle here, but especially from back here, looks great. In the past, I probably would have just ignored all of the comments about my imperfect Skyline and rock chips. You know, the standards are high here in the Japanese car world, but having a kit like this that I can just keep in my car for longer drives and attack those rock chips when they happen versus waiting until the bare metal turns into rust is just such a good thing to have. And naturally, they also have paint pens and aerosol cans. So whether your project's big or small, hit the link in the description, TouchUpDirect.com. You can go see if they have your paint code. Chances are they do, and you can get your car back on the road for driving season. Thanks so much again, TouchUpDirect, for sponsoring the video. Now back to the Zs. The GTR and Z mentalities have always been very different. The GTR is meant to be a precision street and track weapon. The R33 GTR was the first stock production vehicle to get under 8 minutes at the Nürburgring. So that's what they've been chasing after. And of course the R32, Godzilla, that's where it gets its name. And all of that racing pedigree, the R35 has taken that to the last degree. I mean, the ability to create a car that has an incredible amount of downforce, an incredible amount of grip and power and tech. It creates a car that also weighs like a crazy amount. It's something that you don't want to drive at 5/10 on a back road like this, whereas the R33, and of course 32 and 34 by default, are fun all of the time. Versus the Z from the onset, and we can see this by the long hood, sloped back look, and the engine that's a little bit further forward, and you're basically sitting on the rear axle in that car. It's more of a playful, loose kind of fun sports car. It's made for the inputs. So we look back at these GTRs, of course, biggest difference is all-wheel drive, rear steer. The Z does not have rear steer. Even still, considering all of this technology and an active torque vectoring rear differential, electronic differential back in this car, the Z doesn't have that. Now, despite all this GTR weighs about 100 pounds less than the new Z. How did they manage that? How the heck did they manage that? It's amazing. It really brings to light what witchcraft these cars were and how beyond their time these cars were originally when they came out. The RB26, of course, revs a lot higher. Oh my God. So obviously there's no comparison in sound. The VR30, yes, is a larger displacement engine. Stock for stock makes way more power than a stock RB26, but there's no replacing an inline six. This goes without saying. You guys knew that before even clicking on this video. On top of that, I'm assuming this is gonna be your second car. Now, on the other side of things, I will mention, if you're planning on dailying either one of these cars, this is a much better daily driver, despite the fact, you could argue, of course, that the GTR has back seats, which is very true, and they're completely usable. The seats here are way more comfortable. You do have quite a bit more as far as interior amenities go. This one rides a lot nicer. The materials are nicer. There's stitching everywhere. We have Alcantara door inserts on the performance model here. Okay, so not only that, but when we look at simple things like the dimensions of the car, the GTR right here, the R33, excuse me, has about 7 inches in length greater in wheelbase than the new Z. Where did all the weight go, right? This is a lighter car, yet this is a smaller wheelbase, and it kind of looks like a smaller car. And like I mentioned, this has all-wheel drive, it's got rear steer, all of the tech that the old school new Z doesn't have. Where did all the weight go, right? Where did all the weight go? It's as if in the midst between the wheels here, the extended wheelbase, there's just GTR dark matter. It's kind of magic that they didn't have to compromise this late 90s, mid to late 90s GTR, whereas when we look at the R35 GTR now compared to the Z, the gap is massive. First off, in price, okay? The R35 GTR Nismo today, you're looking at a $200,000 USD vehicle. And the Z is sitting at $50,000 USD. You could buy 2 of these and one of those for the price of a brand new R35 GTR Nismo. So the R35 it's chasing power and it's chasing lap times. It is the precision car now, whereas Nissan was able to do it in the mid 90s all in one car and keep the driver feel. When I drive an R33 GTR, it feels like I'm glued to the road. All of the pavement comes through the wheels still, whereas a lot of that's gone in the R35 GTR. So what Nissan was doing with the new Z is trying to recapture, because they were able to, some of that raw driver feel, just those fun driving dynamics And for the most part, I think they succeeded. Shield told me this was not going to be too quick because we're on pump gas. It is. Wow, it's fast. So linear. I don't use that word often because I think it's incredibly cliche, but sometimes that's the only word to really describe the way the turbo comes on. It's not like a table. The dyno graph doesn't look like a ramp up and then a table of torque. It just continues. Oh, that's awesome. T51R mod as well, so the turbo is nice and loud. Only running about 12 PSI right now. Super conservative, but we've still got torque. Now, do we have the low down torque here that the Z has? No, because the twins are gone here. And is the rear gonna kick out and kind of be a little bit more on the unpredictable side? No, it's not, but the steering here. I mean, both cars are incredibly fun to drive. To say one is more fun to drive than the other, I can't honestly say that. Now, does my taste kind of cater towards the R33 GTR a little bit more? Absolutely, mainly the engine. Also, the R35 won't have a tendency to really step out on you, whereas the R33 still does. It's very much still a playful, small, lightweight car. Wow, just the torque is unbelievable. The RB26, every time though I drive a car with an RB26, I want to wind it out. The VR30 is not like that. You can short shift all day long, no problem. And you get most of the acceleration. Of course, you get a little bit more fun when you do rev it to 7,000 RPM redline, but the RB26 you just want to. Also, it revs way higher, it just screams. I think what makes the GTR feel a little bit more nimble is the fact that, yeah, it has HICUS and the steering, also here electronic power steering versus the GTR, of course, hydraulic power steering. A little bit more feel is coming through the road there. Because the new Z has gone electric power steering, now it's not steer by wire, it's a direct, there is a direct connection still to the wheels, and it doesn't have variable ratio steering, which is a good thing. Nissan did that on purpose. Also, the steering wheel in that car, same diameter, same shape, same design as the R32 GTR wheel, because they knew that was basically a perfect wheel from the factory, and you weren't able to actually get that much better than what already existed in the kind of golden era of the cars. Now, I know what you're thinking, okay? Marcus, an RB26 is a crazy expensive engine to upkeep. Not only that, but to buy aftermarket parts for, if you want to do that, just to buy OEM parts is expensive. And you're probably going to spend, oh yeah, rear end kicking sideways there. You're probably going to spend all that money that you're going to pay for a markup on the new Z in repairs in the first couple of years. And that's true. Now, that's just a sacrifice I would be personally willing to take on for the joy of driving an R33 GTR. Now, maybe you don't want that headache. Well, then the Z is absolutely for you. It is more comfortable. The seats are more comfortable than these stock seats. My God, this car is just, it's so planted. It's not loose. It is precise, even 30 years later. Either way, I think your money is very well spent in either of these scenarios. I don't think this new Z, if you're thinking about depreciation, I don't think this is going to depreciate very much, if at all, in the next 2 years or so. Whereas the R33 GTR, of course, who knows? But the trajectory is pointed up with that car, or at the very least, level. I don't see it losing any value anytime soon. at least in the next 5 to 10 years. All right, you guys, there you have it. R33 GTR. I'm biased, first off, you should know that. If you're this far into the video, you probably already know that. After driving both of these cars, I think I've figured it out, okay? So we all know the GTR is like a planted track weapon. If I had to sum up the new Z, it feels like, this is what it feels like to me, it feels like a spiritual successor to the Z32 300ZX. That's how I could closely relate it. It does feel very close to a 370, but just now that it has turbos back on it, right? It's the 3-liter twin turbo. It's torquey down low. The rear end gets squirrely way more often than you could ever dream of in a 370Z, unless you're really trying to kick the rear end out. That's what it feels like. But if you had to ask me $50,000, 50 to 70, let's call it USD, I'd take the R33 GTR. Yeah, it might be a bit of a headache, potentially, but if you're that kind of person, you're just gonna be willing to put in the time, put in the work, and put in the money to make it drive right and the way it should. Not to mention, the RB26 sounds infinitely better than the VR30. I think we all can agree. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. The full review for the Z will be as a link in the description, and we'll see you soon.